Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, I'm out in the westernmost garden plot, and I thought what I'd do today is try and go through show you the progress that we've made with the gardens throughout the season thus far, because today we're actually doing some harvesting of some of the we're actually doing some of the cooking and then canning. Thea's doing canning today of some of our vegetable soup. So the food comes straight from the gardens, goes through the various cleaning and processing stages, and then gets made into one of the products that we're going to ultimately consume. So the first one today is going to be a bean and vegetable soup. So Thea's in doing that today, and I thought I'd share with you the progress that we've made in the garden. So we're over here in the westernmost garden plot. The plants along the chain link panels there, those are the potted plants, the perennial plants that we're waiting to get in the ground. They're mostly black currants and semi-erect thornless blackberry plants over there. The irrigation system hasn't done quite as well because of the tripod setup. It's rather short. It isn't hitting. There isn't the appropriate amount of overlap of each one of the spray patterns. But anyways, it seems to be adequate enough for getting us to this point. The leeks, they're doing absolutely fantastic. I harvested, probably about 8 gallons of leeks the other day. So you can see the second row, almost halfway done down there. Really nice length of the white part of the leek, the part that's most desirable. The aroma is just amazing, and they taste super fantastic. The carrots over here, I've harvested probably maybe a third to a half of the row, just under a half, but a little bit more than a third of the row of the carrots. I did overseed. It was first time using the Jang seeder, and I didn't trust that it was dropping the seeds each time, and so I overseeded the bed, so they're a little bit tight together, so the carrots are small. But boy, do they taste good. They're fantastic. The corn has grown fantastic, but again, the row closest to the building here suffered the consequences of a windstorm. So we lost about 3/4 of these 2 rows in this permanent raised bed. But I was able to harvest enough to be able to do, I don't know how many gallons of soup we'll be processing over the next couple of days, but I was able to process it quite a bit. Let's go down further here. Recently I raised the height of these kennel panels around the outside, which has really worked out great. They're much taller than they were before, up off the ground, and it allows me to see what I'll be doing next with it. The oregano did its whole first planting there. We didn't get much harvested. Thea's been getting it bit by bit, and now it's coming back again, and that'll just go like crazy. The scarlet runner bean, these great big beans, are doing fantastic in this bed, and so are all of the Cherokee Trail of Tears. Really doing great. So let's head over to the central garden and see how that one's looking. Okay, so this is our central garden garden plot here with multiple single row beds. This is the controversial system. This is the one where we lay down the weed mats without burning holes in them, and we completely covered the paths. The only thing we left open was just a narrow pinch where we could put our transplants. I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner that's the video where we laid down all of the weed mats initially, and then a follow-up one where we talk about, geez, we're worried about how hot the surface of the weed mats were getting, and I raised, I recorded the temperature and talked about, geez, how many of the plants we lost because of touching the weed mat fabric and all. Well, so far, I think we're going to do more systems like this. This has been an absolute pleasure to work with. I use the garden tilther to tilt the paths, and this is the most comfortable bed. You can come in here, kneel in here, work here for hours if you needed to, and it's a very comfortable location to work in. The produce has grown like crazy. You know, that's the compost. But we haven't had any weeds. Well, we have a couple of weeds down there at the end, and there's maybe 5 weeds in total that have come up in between the transplants. So this has been our most weed free bed that we've ever had, and that's been fantastic. Now this row of tomatoes here on the right hand side of this screen here, so we have a lot of the canning tomatoes in this row, but they have just grown so much, and I didn't get out here and weed them as I should have, so we're behind. We did lose a lot of our peppers. We put red cabbage in between some of the red peppers, and all of this has worked out very well. The peppers are doing great. They do become much more susceptible to the wind damage, the peppers do. So they bend over and get damaged much more easily. So I may not want to put them right in this row that gets much more wind, the higher velocity of the wind as it comes around the northwest corner there, because we had a lot of them break because of the winds. I've still got to prune these tomatoes. Here's our second row of peppers down in here, which has done much better because they've been protected from the wind. So they haven't snapped off and done quite as much. I really never thought about the pepper plants being so susceptible to the wind as tomatoes and all that, and that's why we use the double stake tomato cages that we've used. And we've had some really high winds. We've had some limbs ripped off of trees. We've had several large trees, some trees that are probably close to 80 years old, come down recently. So I'm so happy with how well these gardens are. With the weed mats, besides them being very comfortable in the base with using the tilther underneath in the paths, the other thing is it's so darn easy to keep these beds clean. On the right hand side of the screen right now are the tomatoes that I came through yesterday when we were harvesting tomatoes, and I pruned off quite a few of them as Thea harvested some. I've got to do the same thing over here on the left side of the screen. You know, I'm just behind in getting a lot of things done, but we're having a tremendous production with all the plants. I have shown that we've harvested the curly kale and the red Russian kale in the past. They're going like gangbusters, so super happy with that. The jalapeno peppers have been doing great. There's tons of them. They haven't started turning the colors yet. Again, they're more susceptible to wind damage. And when we get this far out, when we look at the building and all, the winds actually come down around the tomato cages down there at the end, and it can come down here. So we did lose a couple of the jalapeno plants. The eggplants have done very well. Yesterday I was able to harvest probably about 8 gallons of eggplants, quite a few more in there as well. Haven't touched these carrots over here yet. Now the carrots don't have the weed mat on them. They've adequately shaded out the weeds after I initially did some weeding with them. And I think there's 5 rows in here as I recall, but there's 1 lamb's quarter and a clover down a little bit further. So there's a couple of weeds in here, but not very many at all. So this whole system, man, I've got to give this 5 stars, despite us having a bit of a challenge getting this bed system up and running. The irrigation has been adequate. We've been through a very severe drought here. So it's just a single row drip tape for each one of these permanent raised beds, and they've had minimal care. I haven't been in here taking care of them as I should. You know, those of you who really are into your tomato plants and all, you can see I haven't taken a good care of them, but they're doing fantastic. They're pretty much on autopilot. Well, let's go over to the eastern garden beds and see how things are looking over there. Okay, I'm over here in the most western part of the eastern garden plot. You can see the blue shade cloth laid down here. We harvested all of the Cabernet or red onions, and I went ahead and reseeded this area with some spinach. The red cabbage, purple cabbage, has been doing absolutely fantastic here. Harvested all of the cauliflower, really had beaucoup cauliflower. The broccoli continues. We harvested the first run and at least the second run. Hank, our dog, he likes coming out here. He's a vegan dog. He just loves eating all of the crowns as they come up. So next year we're going to have to keep him out of this area. Behind me here today I harvested quite a few of the celery. They're cut and come again, so we'll have another flush of celery. Here's some of the celery down here at this point. Have collards. We've been eating the collards, and Dill has been doing the canning of the pickles and all as time goes on. Here's another high tunnel of the, I'm sorry for all the sweating, it's a very hot muggy day today. The Scarlet Red Runner beans really doing pretty well over here. Not as well as our most western garden plot, and the Cherokee Trail of Tears as well. So there may be a problem with that drip irrigation tape, but there's quite a few beans here. We'll just have to harvest those, and I'll rebuild this system this fall so that next spring I can get everything started as well. We didn't do very well with our butternut squash, but our melons are doing pretty darn well here. They're getting pretty close to mature. There's only a couple of butternut squash in there. Chard, celery, red onions. What else do we have here? Our pickles, and the zucchini squash didn't do as well this year. Usually that's going like crazy. Chives are doing well as well. So all of these plants have been doing quite well. We harvested all of our Georgia Sweet Candy Roaster squash, and that's in the Harbor Freight. That was all along this edge here, so I'll have to do some cleanup work along in here. Pickles are still at the end over there. Had quite a few weeds popping up here amongst the kidney beans, so I'll end up pulling all these. If I get a chance, I'll get over here and try and get some of the weeds out of here. Big challenge. Once you let the beds start getting weedy and they go to seed, it's a real hassle. This bed of our strawberry bed, this is the ones that we transplanted last year that we went ahead this year and we took some of it and started our second strawberries over there. They're doing fantastic because I was able to keep most of the weeds down. Here we still have quite a few weeds in there, so the strawberries are underneath. So I'll be transplanting some of these plants, the weeds that are here, into other areas because they're very desirable weeds that are here. So I'll be using all of those. These strawberries are doing absolutely fantastic. The chives over here and the Zephyr squash. Our Zephyr squash are just about done. I don't think we're going to get much more. They're absolutely fantastic, and this year we started pickling them. Man, they are really good pickled too, especially when you put a little peppers in with your, I'm sorry, some spicy hot peppers in with your pickles. And the rain gutter garden, we harvested all of our celery, all of our lettuce and spinach from there. Everything started bolting with this whole heat and all. Watermelons doing really well. Pretty happy with that. I've got weeds all around the lavender and the irises, so I've got to dig that whole area out and redo it. Unfortunately, once you let things go to seed, then it gets behind you. And that's a good reason to not go too big, to actually stay somewhat smaller so that you can control your garden beds. It's better to have more productivity in smaller spaces under controlled circumstances, because you can lose your incentive to keep doing gardening if you're constantly battling with weeds and all. So I already showed the blue Hubbard squash up front and the blue potatoes in a recent video when I was pruning the blue Hubbards. So I won't show that in today's video. So that's about it. I'm looking forward to getting these beds, closing up shop with a lot of these beds. We're really getting tons of food out of these beds, and surprisingly, the central garden area seems to be the way that we may be modeling more of the garden beds, with completely covering with weed mats and the single drip tape as well. we're learning all the time as we're doing this gardening, and that's always advantageous. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. I really look forward to seeing what you folks are thinking, the input that you have. If this video was of value, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when we post more videos, and have a super fantastic day. Stay cool. Bye-bye now.